I had to get the 1,000. I had to. Because that was the ticket for me to do what I want to do. So when somebody tells me, if I'm selling them something they can't afford it, what they're really telling me is, you haven't made me want it. Because if I really want it, I will find the money. You always find the money for things you want. I don't care what it is. Might be a dress. Could be a car. Might be a trip. When you really want it, you will always find the money. It's just when you got a weak want, or I'd like that, but you haven't got the money, you just let it pass. But when you really want it, now I could tell you all kinds of stories like that Floor Machine story. Most of them were a hell of a lot bigger than that. But the size of it doesn't matter. The amount of money doesn't matter. When you really want something, you'll hear Sandy talking about her house, one of them. I said, sit in the house. Ask the agent to leave. Mentally move into that house. Sit in every room. Mentally see yourself living in it. That's how you get yourself emotionally involved. When you get sufficiently emotionally involved, you will find whatever's required to do it. That's the way it works. Now look, I want to suggest we spend a few minutes right now looking at the mind and at paradigms, because that's where it's all at, okay? Now we're going to spend a long time in this, but we're going to spend a little bit of time on it. So let's personalize it. We'll look at your mind and your paradigms, okay? Now we're over now. Where are we? Yeah, we're on page 17. Now, Dr. Truman Fleet in 1934 was very involved in the healing arts. He was very involved in holistic health. And he was not happy with what he knew about the healing arts, because he said, we are treating symptoms. We're not treating causes of problems. And he says, as long as you're treating symptoms, you're going to keep getting the problem. They find something wrong, cut it out, it'll grow back. Because you haven't gone to the cause of the problem, you've gone and treated the symptom. You'll hear finance companies, come to us, we'll consolidate your debts for you. You can't get out of debt borrowing money. You get out of debt earning money. Now think. This good doctor said nobody has ever seen the mind, but he said if there's a problem in the body, it has to originate in the mind. That is absolute law, because we're always working from a higher to a lower potential. So it's got to start out in spirit and manifest in physical form. Now there's all kinds of scientists that say, I don't believe that. They don't have to believe it. It's still the way it is. So he said, nobody's ever seen the mind. I'll draw a picture of the mind. And he said, let this represent the mind. Big circle represents the mind, the small one the body. And he said, we'll divide the top one into two parts. And we'll say that's the conscious mind, and that's the subconscious, and then we'll give the body to the small circle. So you see, it's what's going on in the conscious, subconscious that causes your body to move into action. Now, this is, without question, the most valuable idea I've ever learned. I learned it here in the Skyline Hotel in Toronto. I was really into studying this, and I was very frustrated because I knew I was missing a very key point in everything that I was studying. And I was in Chicago, living in Chicago, and somebody said, you should go and hear this guy in Vancouver. So I jumped on a plane, I flew out to Vancouver. And a great big guy got up on stage, Leland Valvandeval. He and I became very good friends. And the second this guy opened his mouth, I knew he knew what he was talking about. You sense it, you feel it, so you hear it. And when the seminar was over, I went over and I said, I'd like to spend a couple hours with you. He said, Bob, I'd probably like to spend a couple hours with you too, but he said, I got to catch a plane. I got to get out of here. And I said, well, I got to catch a plane too. I don't mean right now. And he said, well, where are you going? I said, I'm going home. He said, where do you live? And I said, Chicago. He said, what are you doing out here? I said, I come out to hear you speak. You come all the way out here to hear me. I said, you know something? If I had known what I was going to get, I'd have walked out here. I think that sort of impressed him. And He said, well, I'm not going to be in Chicago anytime in the near future. I'm going to be in Toronto in a couple of weeks. I said, I'm from Toronto. I'll come there. So I jumped on a plane, and I was going to spend a couple hours or 3 hours. I think we were planning on 3 hours down at the Skyline Hotel. We were there for 3 days. And he started to go through this with me. Now, he had to go through it a number of times because I kept it getting mixed up. There was a conscious mind on the top or the subconscious mind on top. And how does this... And I was getting them mixed up because I hadn't studied any of it. But look, here's the drawing. There's the conscious mind, okay, and the subconscious in the body. Now let's think. Your conscious mind is your thinking mind. That is the highest function that you're capable of. Do you know what thinking is? That is taking a mental faculty, tapping into a pure stream of spirit, pure, unadulterated, creative energy. Yet you can form a thought out of it. You can create the thought. Then you can create another one, and you pull a group of them together, and you build an idea. You're a thinker. Nothing on the planet thinks except you and me, so far as we know. If there's anything else, we don't know about it yet. But you can think. That means you've got something in your mind that you'll never see, that can tap into something that you can't see or touch. And you take this power, and you can form a thought out of it. A thought is an idea, or an idea is a thought or a collection of them directed towards a purpose. And then you can think another thought and another thought, and you're on the same frequency, and you're pulling the thoughts together, and you build an idea. And that idea can just wind your stem to no end. It'll get you so excited you can't even go to sleep. That's where your educated mind is. Now, this is a problem, too, because that's where they stack up all the books. And if we got lots of books, we think we've arrived. You can have all kinds of books, and you haven't arrived. You can have degrees coming off the end of a business card and not know to come in out of the rain. This is where your intellect is. This is where the higher faculties, your intellectual factors, perception, will, reason, so on. That's where they all reside. It operates totally different than the emotional mind. See, the conscious mind has the ability to choose. We choose. Do you want to choose to let somebody upset you? Go ahead. Do you want to choose somebody else control your emotions? Go ahead. Do you want to choose to let conditions or circumstances, the economy control you? You go ahead. It's your choice, though. But you also have the ability to accept or reject. I say something, you say, I don't believe that, just reject it. See, I like that, I'll accept that. That's what the conscious mind, it comes into your conscious mind through your senses, and you can think. You say, I don't believe that. And then, if you reject it, you've got the ability to originate. We're originators, we're creators. Now think of all those powers that are in the conscious mind. Pay attention to this. The subconscious mind must accept whatever you give to it. It's amoral. It's like the earth. It could care less what you plant. I love the way Oral Nightingale put it in The Strangest Secret Record. You can plant nightshade, a deadly poison. Not a 16th of an inch away you can plant corn, a sweet food. One will grow with just as great an abundance as the other. That's the way the subconscious mind. You can plant a worry, it'll grow. You can plant a beautiful, inspirational idea, it'll grow. The subconscious mind must accept because it has no ability to reject. Now, if you want to get technical about it, we say it's totally deductive in its reasoning capacity. It can only accept, it cannot reject. Conscious mind's inductive and deductive reasoning, but not the subconscious. Subconscious can only accept. It's like the garden. Whatever you plant, that's what you're going to get. So if you're wondering what you're planting, just take a look at what you're getting. Take a look at the results you're getting. If you don't like your results, better change what you're planting. Find some new seeds. Now get this. The subconscious mind cannot differentiate between what's real and what's imagined. So, pretend you're happy when you're blue. It isn't very hard to do. And you'll find happiness without an end whenever you pretend. See, if you're getting emotionally involved in that, subconscious mind doesn't know you're pretending. It doesn't know. It just accepts what you're turning over. And that's the vibration you're going to move into. Isn't that a beautiful concept? I think so. Now look with all that knowledge, here we are today. We are surrounded by ideas from the radio, other people, TV, newspapers, And they are just pouring into our consciousness. Because we have a reasoning factor, we have the ability to think. And because we think, we can reject or accept. Now, let's suppose all this stuff in the radio, the other people, the TV and newspapers, all negative. You know what we can do? We can say, get out of here. That's what we can do. This is what we do. We not only don't say, get out of here, we leave our subconscious mind wide open, and it goes right in. Just whatever's going on around, that's what controls us. We're a product of our environment. You say, well, I don't do that. You would be amazed how much time you spend doing that. Why do we do that? Because you're programmed to do it from the time you're a baby. So let's take a look here for a moment. It's your paradigm. Let's go over here. And we'll say this is when you were an infant. And as you arrive home from the hospital as the infant, or maybe you were born at home, I was born at home, the subconscious mind is wide open. And whatever's going on in your environment, that's what goes in. What are the people talking about? How do they live? What people? Your parents. See, somebody doesn't want to think bad thoughts. These are not bad thoughts, they're just true thoughts. My parents were hardworking, but they were always broke. They never had anything, neither did any of the relatives around us. It was not a very prosperous area that I grew into. And whatever's going on just keeps going into your mind because your mind's wide open. It doesn't have the ability to reject anything. Do you know that the image that you're holding of yourself was built when you were in an infant state? Where did you get the information from? All the people you're surrounding by. Most of them didn't know the war was over. I mean, they're just operating with not much information. And that is one idea, okay? We say in the absence of clearly defined goals, we become strangely loyal to performing daily trivia until ultimately we become enslaved by it. Well, mostly it's people that have no clearly defined goals that surround and raise you. And what are they involved in? They're involved in trivia until ultimately the baby's enslaved by it, you're enslaved by it, the parents are enslaved by it. Just take a look at how people live. It's obvious. See, the self-image is one idea. A multitude of them becomes a paradigm. Now, here's what's really strange. This all happens in the first 2 or 3 years of life. You can teach that baby anything. Babies can learn 4 and 5 languages all at the same time. They don't think it's difficult to learn a language. But they can learn how to stay poor, too. They can learn how to be nasty to people. I like in the song, Lerner and Lowe's, you know, a little boy has to be taught to love and hate before they're 5 or 6 or 8. You see? Think. It's hard to believe that happens when we're infants, and this is the way we are 40 and 50 and 70 years later. Doing the same thing. Oh, things improve a little bit. There'd be incremental improvements, but nothing big. Stop and think of your own relatives. God, I can think of sections of our family that, well, I was born during the Depression. I grew up as a kid during the Second World War, and most of them did, of course, and they have nothing. They have nothing. Some of them think I'm lucky. You can relate to this. You know what I'm saying here. This is the way it is. Now look, school gave us valuable knowledge. However, school never taught us to alter old paradigms. So what happens? We frequently do not do what we already know how to do. We have superior knowledge, inferior results, and what's that cause? That causes enormous confusion and frustration in a person's life. Now, everyone here is going to be able to relate to this. Let's put the drawing back up, and there is what school has dumped into your consciousness. Now, they want to make sure you've learned this. Did you read the book? Because you know what's in the book. Look it. You could memorize Think and Grow Rich, and you could be broke all your life. If you think knowledge is the deal, then every librarian should be a billionaire, because the greatest knowledge in the world is at their fingertips all around them. I think somebody said there was about 8 million books in the Harvard Library. It isn't worth diddly sitting in a library. You've got to execute it. You've got to take it and use it. Well, you see, we get it in our consciousness. They want to know if we've got it. So what they're doing is they give us a test. And then they check to see, did we learn it? And how do they find out if we learned it? They find out by giving us a test. They give us questions. And if we answer more questions right than wrong, then we pass the test. And if we pass the number of tests, then they'll give us a degree. Now, for a long time, if you took that degree out, you could cash in and get a good job. Had nothing to do with what you're capable of doing. And you see, unfortunately, the knowledge in your consciousness doesn't necessarily translate into results. This really puzzled me when I first started to study this. I knew people that were really bright. I mean, they were smart. I knew they were smart. And they got terrible results. Why? Well, think about it. It's the paradigm that causes the results. School doesn't show you how to use the paradigm. They don't even relate to it. They deal with you on an intellectual level and the knowledge. Now, if you're going to change the results, I'm going to tell you something going to happen by accident. If you want to get different results, you have to change the paradigm. Now, that is really what Matrix is about. And if you don't get it there, you don't get it. The results are controlling your life, or the paradigm's controlling the results. Now, I don't want you to get that you're frustrated and think, God, how do I get all this together? It'll all fall into place. We're building this model fairly slowly, but pretty clearly. And so as we go through these things, you're going to think of things that you're doing, things you've done, things where you've screwed up and things where you made it happen good. You know, they all fall into place. You'll start to see, geez, I can see now how I could change that. I could make that so much better. I can think anything I want to think. Do you see how you could do that, Chris? And it's not that difficult, is it? But it's difficult to execute. Absolutely. Yeah. It's difficult to execute because the paradigm wants to stay in control. The paradigm is a greedy control freak. It does not want to let you go. You know that you should be doing something, but you don't do it. Why don't you do it? Well, I don't know. Yes, you do. It's your paradigm. You got to get to a point where you say, well, hold on a second. Treat the paradigm like a person in your mind. That's how I treat it. I talk to it. I say, get the hell out of here. You know, I'm not going to listen to you. I don't love you anymore. Get out of here. You see? And you're going to do that. You've got to realize that it is like a person in your subconscious mind that talks to you. And it talks to you all the time. You all talk to yourself. I know some of you are sitting there and saying, I don't talk to myself. And you're talking to yourself. Yeah. You see? Well, we've got to take control. And we've got to make up our mind that from this point on, Bob's in control. Not the person that was built when I was a little boy. Not the person that has these problems and that problems. These problems and that problems are just an expression of the paradigm. That's all it is. And as long as I give power to the problems, I'm giving problem to the paradigm because I'm giving problem to the cause of the problem. Listen, I mentioned right at the start, you got to keep this simple. If you try and complicate it, if you want to get into some complicated philosophical diatribe of a concept, let it go. I'm a simple guy. I really am a simple guy. Now, I think I'm pretty smart because I've been around it for a long time, so I'm pretty quick. But I'm a simple person. I'm not a complicated individual. Like, I see it like it is, and that's the way I deal with it, and there's nothing complicated. I don't think there's anybody here that's any better than anybody else. I just think you're all the same. You know, the only thing different is your results, and that's caused by your awareness. If you're not getting too good of results, you'll improve them or you don't, but it's up to you. We've got this ability. We got to take a grip on ourselves. Let this drawing stick with you.